So in today's video, the Trump administration has come down hard on New York after warning them to get their act together with their commercial driver's license procedures, handing out CDL licenses recklessly to illegal immigrants and migrants, despite the fact that they can read, write, or speak English, and have been creating unnecessarily dangerous situations on the road across the country. Apparently, the governor, Kathy Hochul in New York, thought that New York was above compliance. But now they're finding out the hard way that their city and state sanctuary policies don't overhaul federal law. So we got a lot to break down. As always, if you are enjoying the content, smash that thumbs up. That's the best way to let me know. Subscribe to stay locked in with the future videos. Now let's get into the Secretary of Transportation, Sean Duffy, warning New York back in December exactly what would happen if they did not comply. Take a listen.
So it begs the question, how did they get a commercial driver's license? How did they get through the system if they don't understand the language? And that's prompted us to look at the commercial driver's license mills, the CDL mills. Businesses that stand up and they're pushing drivers through, in air quotes, their training program, which is no training program at all, and allowing them to go to the state DMVs and get a driver's license. This is incredibly risky because, one, not only do they not speak the language, but we're seeing that they're not well trained. And if we're going to have drivers on American roadways, they need to be the best trained, the best skills, because if operated incorrectly or inappropriately, these are lethal weapons on American roadways. And especially at a time as America is about to travel. We think about this every single day, but America is about to hit the road for this Christmas season. They're thinking about it. And so in California, again, 25% of their driver's licenses were issued illegally. 17,000 were pulled, and we are grateful for that. But it brings me to the reason we're here today. As we've done this nationwide audit, we found the worst offender, which is the state of New York. 53% of New York's non-domiciled CDLs were issued unlawfully or illegally. Now, what New York does is, if an applicant comes in and they have a work authorization for 30 days, 60 days, 1 year, New York automatically issues them an 8-year commercial driver's license. That's contrary to the law. That's one offense. But we also found that New York many times won't even verify whether they have a work authorization, they have a visa, or they're in the country legally. So they're just giving 8-year commercial driver's licenses to people who are coming through their DMV and sending them out on American roadways. And again, they're endangering the lives of American families. I don't like that I have to do this, but the law requires me to do this. I'm going to give New York 30 days, because that's what the law requires, to come into compliance with the rules that have been long-standing at the Department of Transportation. If they come into compliance, we're going to work with them. If New York refuses to come into compliance, because Kathy Hochul, for some reason, believes that we should have unqualified truck drivers on American roadways, we are going to pull tens of millions of dollars as phase one for the state of New York.
Yeah, so you just heard that. And so you have a situation here where you had New York as well as other states. Because of the Biden era open border policies, you had millions upon millions of illegal migrants who entered into the country. You also had a combination of that along with people who were here on work visas, but they were temporary, could have been 6 months or whatever. But they were able to gain access to long-term CDL licenses, such as an 8-year CDL license, as the Secretary of Transportation mentioned. And so you add all of that and put that into a pot, and then you put people who are unaware of how to read signs, speak the language, or write the language out on the road. And yeah, it's going to obviously have dire consequences for anyone who comes into contact with them at any given moment, at the wrong time. And those wrong times occurred several times out on the roads in this country where we've seen tragic accidents happening due to negligence, due to people passing the buck and basically allowing those who should have never been given a license to be out on the road driving a megaton vehicle, giving those people a vehicle, giving those people license to do so. Schools fudged the numbers and allowed people who should have never been on the road to pass and get their CDL. And so it was pretty much one big funneled operation, if you ask me. So now you have New York crying and complaining that if they are forced to comply and remove these people who should not have their license, it will have devastating effects on New York. Take a listen.
We're here at the Hunts Point Market, which is an important hub not just for city food distribution, but food distribution around the tri-state. And people here say cutting half the commercial driver's licenses in New York State would have just an absolutely devastating impact.
From here, we deliver all the food to New York State.
Daniel Escobar is a mechanic who works near the Hunts Point Market in the Bronx, where the daily coming and going of thousands of trucks feeds this economy and the entire city. The Trucking Association of New York says 1 out of every 25 jobs in the state is tied to trucking, and those jobs pay more than $22 billion in wages, not to mention other economic impact. So if they took a lot of licenses away, it would create a lot of problems?
A lot. Okay. Will be really complicated.
But now U.S. Secretary of Transportation Sean Duffy says an audit shows that perhaps more than half of New York's 32,000 commercial driver's licenses may have been issued to people in the country illegally, and those should be reevaluated. He says if New York refuses, he'll pull tens of millions of dollars in highway funding. Duffy says the main issue is New York State automatically issues 8-year commercial licenses, or CDLs, to people here on short or expired work visas.
When an American and a family gets in a car, they shouldn't be worried that they have an unqualified foreigner operating an 80,000-pound big rig that could endanger their lives.
The New York State DMV says, quote, Secretary Duffy is lying about New York State once again in a desperate attempt to distract from the failing, chaotic administration he represents. Here is the truth. Commercial driver's licenses are regulated by the federal government, and New York State DMV has and will continue to comply with federal rules. The federal government says New York State has 30 days to comply, or the highway funding cuts will commence. Governor Hochul's office says the letter from the DOT demanding these things is being reviewed.
And so here's the thing. The federal government, the Trump administration, actually was more lenient than perhaps they should have been, because beyond the 30 days, they gave them 4 months. Because now, after months and months of basically ignoring the federal government's rules and saying you must comply, you must get in compliance, you must at least work alongside us to fix this issue that we found. And New York deciding that they would basically say, no, we're not going to listen. Now, other states also were issued as far as warnings and told to comply. For example, California, they had an issue. Originally, they weren't going to comply. Then suddenly news came out and they were dropping license holders left and right for CDLs and tried to take credit for it as if they were cleaning it up and this is how they do to make sure they keep California safe. But we know that came as a result of the federal government dropping the hammer and making them do that. And so California tried to do the same thing, but end up complying. But for some reason, New York decided that they don't really have to listen. They're not going to go that route. And so now, ladies and gentlemen, the DOT is pulling $73 million of funding from New York because they decided they do not have to listen. And so let's jump into this clip for more. Take a listen.
Secretary Duffy, I appreciate you coming on to Eyewitness News and talking about this. This is a very big news story throughout New York, and I wanted to just get your feeling, but what happened, what have you done, and why has it been done?
So first, this is a big news story across the country where we have drivers who are in the country unlawfully, haven't been well trained, and we've seen these crashes where they're killing American families, American citizens. So we've done a review across multiple states across the country. And specifically, we're looking at New York, and New York has issued 32,000 commercial driver's licenses to foreigners. They're called non-domiciled CDLs. Well, in our audit of New York, 53% of those driver's licenses were issued unlawfully. And so I don't want to be at war with New York, so I reached out to New York and said, listen, we need you to do a review of these commercial driver's licenses and revoke the ones that are unlawful. And New York said, we're not going to do it. We're not going to do this review. And so today we're announcing we're going to pull $73 million from the state of New York, funding that New York actually needs. And all I want is for them to come into compliance to make sure we keep not just New Yorkers and people in New Jersey, but across the country safe from individuals who shouldn't have a commercial driver's license because they're not complying with federal regulation and federal laws.
There are a lot of people who would say, you know, why don't you just take somebody out to dinner, say this is what we want to do, you have X amount of time to try to do this, and let's get with it. And instead, this is there's a lot of money that this state needs.
Yeah, you're 100% right. So I didn't take Kathy Hochul out to dinner. That's
well,
true.
Maybe that's where the answer to this.
Well, no, we sent a nice letter to say this is what we need you to do. And again, we did our audit in December. It's now April, so we've given 4 months for New York to comply. We gave them plenty of time.
Are you kidding me? All he was looking for was some cooperation, and you got to take somebody out for a dinner and a movie in order to get that? A state representative, the governor? I mean, 30 days was more than enough, and if we're being honest, they were far too lenient even with that, especially after giving them warning. Especially when you consider the fact of the lives that are at danger, the American lives that are at danger, as long as it's allowed to happen and is not getting cleaned up. California thought that they could do the same thing, said the same story, the same song that New York was saying. Come to find out how many license holders were removed. Roughly 18,000. And this guy's talking about taking them out to dinner and having a discussion. Yeah, 4 months. And in return, Kathy Hochul, Democrats in New York, thought they could pretty much say, well, we don't have to listen to you. We'll just lie and keep doing what we're doing. But let's continue.
And they've, in essence, refused. And so I would love if they would say, let's work together, let's partner up. How do we get into compliance? And that's the end goal. But when they say we're not, Kathy Hochul came out with a statement and basically said we've complied with the law, which we know she gave driver's licenses to people who are actually in the country illegally, or gave a license for 8 years when someone might only be lawfully in the country for another 2 months. So because of that, we want to work with her in the state of New York, but they basically told us to pound sand. So I have no other choice, Bill, but to pull money, and that's just step one. I have additional steps to pull additional money, and the final step I can take is pull New York's capability of even issuing commercial driver's licenses. I don't want to do any of that. I want to be a partner and a friend and an ally, but when I get governors in states that won't comply with the law and they endanger the safety of the American people, I guarantee you I will take action.
So you wanted it done the end of this last year. It's not a lot of time, and I understand what you're saying. You wanted to make it as safe as possible. But meeting with people at a time when people are worried about the economy, New York is just like that. Certainly New York City is like that. And they're saying, well, you know, we know that President Trump, a lot of people here say that, President Trump is trying to get at blue states, especially New York, and he's taking advantage of that.
Well, that's just not true. So I looked at California as a good example, run by another Democrat in a liberal state. They didn't come into compliance. We pulled money from them. And then California decided to come into compliance. And when they did the review that I'm asking New York to do, California actually revoked 17,000 commercial driver's licenses.
Wow.
People who shouldn't be on American roads. And so this is not about, listen, you ask any Democrat, I don't play partisan games. I'm about the safety of the American people, whether it's on our roadways with trucks or cars or in our airspace with airplanes. I'm looking at safety. And this is not a focus on New York. All Kathy Hochul had to do is say, listen, let's work together. We are going to do the review. And I would say, well, I'll give you time to do the review. And she said, I'm going to revoke those licenses that were unlawfully issued. I'd be great. Take the time. Let's do that. When they say we're not going to take any action, what that is actually doing is saying we're going to thumb the nose at federal regulation. And by the way, I've got new rules in place to make it more stringent. But these are rules that were put in by the last administration, by Democrats. So she's not even complying with Pete Buttigieg's and Joe Biden's rules from from the federal motor carriers rules and regulations.
Wow. So, ladies and gentlemen, did you just hear that? These are not Trump policies. They haven't even kicked in yet, is what he's saying. These are the Biden administration policies that their blue states are deciding that they did not want to comply with. California, New York, and it took funding being pulled from California in order for them to comply. And now it's taking funding being pulled from New York, and we'll see how long they want to hold out before they decide now, yeah, we'll comply. And so it just goes to show you that you have Democrats in these blue states who, because it's all about fighting Trump, because it's all about opposing the Trump administration, they'll do anything as long as it aligns with that.
What roles have these policies had on the nation's roads?
I'm sorry, one more time?
What role has the policies had on the nation's roads?
Well, the rules and regulations basically set forth how and who can get a commercial driver's license. And there's rules that allow those who have come into the country lawfully but aren't citizens to get a commercial driver's license. But we don't allow those who've come into the country illegally to get licenses. And if you're going to get a commercial driver's license, you have to be well trained. You have to go through a school. Then you have to be certified that you have knowledge and skills through the DMV or from someone who's authorized from the DMV. Bill, there's a lot of American citizens who want to drive truck. These are good paying jobs. And there's a lot of people who want to fill these roles. And this is a time of partnership. This is a time where we should be working together to keep people safe. You mentioned partisan. Well, let me just make, but there's no, keeping Americans safe is not a Republican or Democrat issue.
Right.
You have a blue tie, I have a red tie. That's not a political issue. That's just an American issue. That's a good government issue, right? Keep people safe, whether you're Democrat or Republican, and people like you. And that's what we're trying to do with these rules.
And what happens to the money that the state won't get anymore at a time when most states need the money? That's a problem.
And by the way, that's because the state said, we want to fight the Trump administration for just trying to keep New Yorkers safe. I'm trying to keep New York citizens safe. Kathy Hochul should want to keep her citizens safe. I want to keep those in New Jersey safe.
Finally, I know you're busy. Here's what she says about it. These charges are a baseless attempt to attack blue states because, as everyone knows, New York simply follows federally issued rules when issuing commercial driver's licenses, something that even the Trump administration has acknowledged. We will fight back, and once again, we will win. How do you respond to that?
That's a bold-faced lie. She was giving commercial driver's licenses to actually people who are illegally in the country. She gave an 8-year driver's license to people who are only lawfully in the country for another 2 months or 2 years. And by the way, there's Republican states who are not in compliance as well. And I've gone to them, but they've said, okay, we'll work with you. And we will actually change our policies. We will review the licenses that were issued and revoke the ones that were unlawfully given. This Kathy says, I don't want to do that. And I mean, I don't understand that because, again, you want your roads to be safe with safe drivers, and that's bipartisan.
No question we want our road to be safe with drivers. There's no question. But you know as well as anybody, Secretary, that there are a lot of people who are undocumented workers who have been here for years and are crucial to the economy of places like Los Angeles and like New York.
But you're right. But I'm in a position where we follow rules. If you're in the country illegally, that doesn't mean you get to drive an 80,000-pound vehicle on American roads with American families that are going to church or to Walmart. That's not what that means. I want to make sure that I have well-qualified people, well-trained people who are in the country lawfully driving these vehicles. And to say that you have someone who's been here for years, that they have a right to drive an 80,000-pound big rig down American roads, I'll tell you, Bill, I fundamentally disagree with that. That does not give you a right to drive a commercial vehicle.
Secretary of Transportation.
Because you're in the country unlawfully.
Secretary of Transportation Sean Duffy, I really appreciate you making your case here on Channel 7 Eyewitness News, and good luck to you, sir.
Yeah, so you just heard that, and he's right. That makes no sense, that argument that, well, because they're here for years and years and years, that illegally, that somehow that grants them the right to be able to drive a megaton vehicle, even though they may not be able to read, right, speak the language. But because they've been here for years and years and years illegally, that it's okay. We should figure out some way to still allow them to do the driving and endangering American lives. I mean, come on, make it make sense. Yeah, and so I think this can end up being a good thing as far as in the long run, because it opens up more opportunities for American workers, more fair pay, where now companies are forced to actually give a fair pay. I think it's pretty easy, as so maybe some of you know, maybe some of you don't. It's pretty easy to kind of, when these companies do that, they know what they're doing. They know that they can kind of pull a fast one on an illegal migrant or someone who is on an expired work visa, or someone who maybe not know their rights and what they actually deserve as much as an American citizen who will not go along and play the game as much as others will, who will be willing to be lowballed or take a few extra dollars less, that in order where now the company gets to pocket the revenue and treat their drivers even worse. And so, you got a lot of dirty companies out there, obviously, who do that sort of thing, and a lot of American workers who stand up to it or don't go along with it. And so you end up having illegal migrants take that job because they're less likely to speak out or speak up against something. And so we'll see how long this takes for New York to end up coming along as far as complying, because now 73 million has been pulled, and we'll see what continues to happen before they decide, it's better to work alongside the federal government rather than trying to work against it. We saw what happened in California with the thousands upon thousands of CDLs that had to be revoked. New York is pretending as if they are running a clean operation. Well, let's find out and see. But those are my thoughts and the update. Now let me hear from you. Drop your comment down below. I appreciate when you guys chime in. Don't forget, enjoy the content, smash that thumbs up, subscribe for more. And as always, until next time.